Well, then, I'm just gonna gavel it in like a regular meeting, but.
Yeah, but let's make sure.
Michelle Jordan's on there.
Good morning.
Good morning, Michelle.
Morning.
How are y'all?
We're doing fine. How are you?
Good.
Okay. We got a minute. Fred, are you ready?
It's Joey. Yes, sir. I'm good.
Okay. Have we got the recorder ready to go? You recording it, Joey?
Yes, sir. I've got it.
Okay. Okay, we'll call to order the special meeting of the Jackson County Board of County Commissioners for August the 18th. Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond some of our commissioners' control, they are not going to be here this morning. So there's only 2 commissioners here today. As a result of that, we cannot take any action, but we can listen to what is going to be presented and ask questions. Ms. Daniels?
Yeah, before we get started, I did want to ask Ms. Tammy Dasher to come up briefly. This is nothing, I would be asking y'all to confirm her, but if you just want to say something. This is going to be our new autism program director, and so wanted to introduce her to the board, and we'll do that again more formally when at least 3 are here.
Okay, very good. We appreciate you coming on board. You want to tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. First of all, thank you. I'm very excited for this opportunity. I'm very excited about the vision for the Next Step Academy at Endeavor. I think it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful experience for a lot of individuals with autism. I'm coming to you with 29 years of special education background, and I was a teacher over in East Florida for a long time, and most recently coming from FSU's Autism Institute. And welcome, I'm already received.
So where did you say you taught before?
I taught at Pace High School in Pace, Florida.
Pace. Oh, okay. So you know where Pea Ridge is at.
I know where Pea Ridge is. I know all
Well,
those little places over there.
Yeah, welcome aboard. You know, we're excited about the Autism Center, and we're going to work to make sure that it is a success. I think it is a great thing that we're doing, and the board is behind it 100%. And we'll do everything we can to make it a success for not only the county, but the surrounding states, the entire area, to serve these people. It's obvious to me there is a great need that is not being met. And I think Jackson County stepping forward is a great thing. And hopefully we can make it happen.
We're going to make it happen. Thank
Commissioner
you so
Pate, you want to say anything?
Welcome aboard, and
Thank
look
you.
forward to working with you. And like I said, we hope it's a big success.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Daniels.
We won't be doing anything on this agenda except receiving the presentation by, I guess, Mr. Roger Lim. And then also later on, there's going to be a representative from Evergreen Solutions to give about a 10-minute briefing regarding a salary study.
Okay. Mr. Lim, you want to come up? Recently there was a conference down, a county commission conference down in Orlando. And when they set these conferences up, they always have vendors come in and do presentations. And we had the opportunity to meet Mr. Lim in Orlando.
Lindy.
Lindy.
It would have been easier if it would have been.
Lim B. Okay. But anyway, I think they've got a product that is interesting. We wanted to find out more about it. So why don't you do a presentation, and I suspect we'll have questions.
Sounds great. Joey's going to put some couple slides up for you. And I do have 4 packets here that have a lot of information for you to take with.
Are those the ones you had in Orlando?
There's a lot more information in here, and I can
Okay.
get you copies, but if you want to pass these off to the
I
engineer.
tell you what to do with those. I know David Melvin's here, Travis Howell's here, engineering groups. Why don't you make sure they get one? And then if you would forward some to the board, to Ms. Daniels, she'll make sure that all the commissioners get them.
Sounds great. All right. Well, first of all, my name is Roger Lindy. I'm with a company called Forda. We're based out of Pennsylvania, and the company's been around since 1978. We specialize in reinforcement fibers. Next slide, Joey. And so for those out there who might be familiar with fibers that are in concrete, that's us. It's a reinforcement fiber. The next fiber over is Fortify, and that is actually a fiber it's made of Kevlar. We tried to introduce it back in the 80s and again in the 90s. And what happened was wars broke out, and for national security purposes, it all went to the military. So we finally got enough production that was being able to be made for the public sector. So we brought it up in the 2000s. And like I say, our specialty for our company is reinforcement for materials. But next slide, Joey. The history on the technology as far as fibers goes back 3,500 years old. I'd like to say this is something new, but it's the same concept of what the Egyptians did 3,500 years ago with horsehair and straw. You're mixing it into mud. What's it doing? It's giving you a 3-dimensional reinforcement. For the asphalt purpose, we're using the strongest synthetic fiber out there, hence why it's used in bulletproof vests. It's got 850-degree flash point, 400,000 tensile strength. It'll bend, but it doesn't stretch. Next slide. And what it does as far as in the road system itself, this kind of breaks it down real quickly. When it's mixing in, the first one is on what you're seeing, the fiber in the asphalt. The second one is on the macro level, where, especially here in Florida, what's our biggest thing that breaks up our roads? Water and the heavy traffic. Well, the water's in there, you're not going to stop it. But what's helping is hold it together, getting the longer life out of the fibers is the stretching it across there, and it breaks all the way down to the micro level where the water initially starts breaking it down. This is actually the first project that we did with this. Go ahead and start the video. It was with Boeing, and this was at the military base in Arizona. Good news, bad news. Good news was it was with Boeing. Bad news was the Apache helicopter was there, so they wouldn't let us take any videos. 2 years later, they had this water drain break. So the contractors were looking at it and said, hey, this is that new asphalt. So they cut a section in there, and they're just picking it up with a single anchor bolt. They sent, after they took this video, they sent it to us and go, hey, you guys got something here. That's a single anchor bolt picking up the whole slab. And this is where people will go, asphalt doesn't do that. You'll notice that it's
that asphalt or concrete?
That's asphalt. And you'll notice that it still bends, so it doesn't make it rigid like concrete, but hence there's 19 million fibers per ton that are mixed into. Next slide. A lot of people go out when we're at the plant, they're going, how do you know that the fiber is actually being mixed in there? Play this one, and this is just a real quick. So you don't see it once it's mixed in here. Here's a gentleman taking a screwdriver, sticking it in there before it gets in and out. And that's how much fiber is in there. And again, that's just like if you had a flower pot and you pick it out, pull it out. All it is it's the fibers holding everything together. Next slide. Jackson Hole, Wyoming was our second project that we did. They said, hey, Jackson Hole has some unique problems. They're up at a high altitude and it's a short runway. So they're big jets that are coming in, they're coming in about 30 knots faster than normal. And it's a short runway. So they're replacing this runway every 6.5 to 7.5 years. They said, hey, if this fiber works and we get one more year, it'll pay for itself. That was back in 2009. As of 6 months ago, the engineers were out there. They're saying that they're not going to have to replace that till 2023, doubling the life. Next slide. Here's a case study for Lancaster, California. We would never recommend anybody to pave over the top of that road, but they wanted to see quick results, whether it actually worked or not. So they did half with fiber, half without fiber. As you can see on the right side, the fiber side is breaking up, what you would expect. This is a 2-inch overlay. Next slide. And this is after 2 years. The side on the right holding together, the left where it's breaking apart. Next slide. This will go ahead and run the video. This is called a C-Star crack test. And this is Courtney Drummond is our assistant secretary at DOT. I worked with him about 1.5 years ago in Tallahassee. This was his aha moment of going, all right, so we are now on slate with 3 projects with DOT. We've already done one north on SR 200 north of Jacksonville. The next one's coming up with, I'm gonna have you stop the video here in a second. There, go ahead and stop the video right there. Two things out of this that was Courtney Drummond's takeaway. You're going to notice the time frame that it takes for the crack to come down is about twice as long for the fibers to come through with the fiber side. The one on the control side is without the fiber. That's what we drove in on work today. Everybody sees that same big old crack in there. The other side is it's not only did it take twice as long, you'll notice the cracks are much smaller. Hence, that's how we're getting 30 to 40% longer life and a lot less maintenance because it's helping hold everything together. Next slide. Last one on the hot mix. This actually for NCAT, for those that don't know, is up at Auburn University. NCAT does they've got a circular test track and they've got 5 semis that drive around in the circle all day long. Sounds like a cool job at first, but probably get a little old. 15th lap. They do it every 3 years and they do a study on it of how well it's held up. We just finished, this just came out here about 1.5 months ago. This is our 3rd cycle of it being done. So it's been done since 2012. One of the things so this is the results of the 3rd cycle. And what you're seeing is the side that doesn't have the fiber, they started cracking, breaking apart. And we're on the red on the bottom, the synthetic fiber section is still cracking the stress. Again, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. NCAT is the leading research place in the world for the fibers for the asphalt. Next slide. Now, as far as what you were saying, as far as what brought me here for the meeting is you guys have a lot of country roads and you guys have a lot of millings. You're wrapped. Well, what we have done, and Brian, are you online?
Yes.
All right, I forgot to introduce you. I'm sorry, buddy.
That's fine.
Brian Eamstrom he was 35 years with Pennsylvania DOT and did over 20 years where Pennsylvania basically has no country roads. Well, I talked with Kevin Talbot, our Secretary DOT, about 1.5 weeks ago, and he says, you need to get this out to everybody because we've got basically 4,000 miles of country roads that the counties are on their own as far as when it comes to county roads. They're pretty much not DOT. You guys have your own.
We're in the same boat.
Figure it out. So he says, get out there, help people. Hence why we ended up at the show. So what Brian has done, well, go ahead, Brian, you explain to him how you did over 20 years of getting Pennsylvania without basically no country roads.
Well, and let me first introduce myself. It's again, like Roger said, Brian Eamstrom. I did spend over 30 years at DOT. I worked 7 years with an emulsion company, and involved in this process is the emulsion oil. So what we had done, the state decided, the DOT decided they didn't want to have any dirt roads left. The state owned themselves. So what we did, and instead of grading them and dressing them up 2 and 3 times a year, we did a dress up on the roads. put a dust layer down and then paved them with 100% wrap materials. And to date, a lot of those roads have been in place now for 20, 25 years with minimal maintenance, mostly just a chip seal or a cape seal done on them to preserve them. And they increased our IRIs. So we were the worst in the state out of the 67 counties for years. And up till a few years ago, 15 years ago, I guess now, we were one of the top 3 in the state because of our secondary road system. So it's worked very well for us. The DOT owned the material, so anybody that has that material is capable of doing these processes. And if not, I mean, there is that material available. And a lot of times what had been done was in writing contracts, if they were doing millings, whoever owned the roads themselves started retaining those millings in a stockpile. We would go into a stockpile, get them to a certain size by gradation, depending on where you were and what you had, add some emulsion to it, put it in a truck, take it out and pave it, and you have a new, basically a blacktop based road.
You want the next slide?
I can't see the slides, Roger.
Ah, okay. This
So we
is
did
because-
a process in over in Ohio. It was one of our kind of maiden processes with the material in it. What we had done was they had extracted a chipping aggregate out of their millings, and they created a byproduct, which was a fine material that had high residual amounts of asphalt, somewhere around 5.5%, but a size of only a 1/4 inch minus on the gradation part. So we knew we didn't have a whole lot of strength in that material, but at the same time, they wanted just to see if I had overlay a secondary road that they had just done. It was a dead end road that had low ADT on it. So we did, we paved that out with the paved material in their mix, real pug mill, added the emulsion to it. There you go. And this is kind of the process. That was a pug mill that they have their own in Trumbull County. It actually has an asphalt pump, a water pump, a mixing head. And what you do, you load the material right into the hopper. It goes up the conveyor, into the mix head, out into the truck, and off to the paver. So it's a pretty simple process that way. And what they have found, this is the 4th year down now, and they didn't expect a year out of it. So they chip sealed it first season, and to date, it's still holding up for them far beyond what they figured it would last.
Next slide.
Go to the next slide if you, I guess. I lost you. Anyhow. So that's basically in a nutshell what that material does with the paved fiber. What we have found, we have done studies with ASU and Penn State University. We currently have material, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, Roger, with Shane Underwood doing the testing on it.
Say that again.
The material that we had sent down for Shane Underwood to do the testing on for the wrap materials. We just did the process for this project up in Pennsylvania here a month ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we actually have Panama City is doing their first project on the hot mix. They just, I believe they had their meetings yesterday to vote on putting it in. So they're doing a 2-mile section. So as soon as we get a date for you guys, we'll be able to show you. CW Roberts got the contract, and we'll have our Voyager that's the disperses the fiber. So you actually be able to see firsthand how everything is put together out to the job site. But as soon as we get a firm date on it, I'll let you guys know.
Good.
As far as the paved section, like I said, you've got 2 different fibers up there. The all yellow is the Kevlar, and that's for the hot mix. And you have to use the Kevlar because you're doing with 300, 350 degrees, where the Kevlar has a 850 degree flash point. The other's a cold mix design. So your cost, if you've got your millings, that's how you're getting a big, huge cost reduction on being able to do your country roads. Well, now all of a sudden you're getting, basically you need, and this, you're ending up with about half the cost of paving a cold mix for your low volume roads. But look what it does for your county. Obviously your people on the county roads love it, but for your tax base, now you're all of a sudden you don't have to do the maintenance on them. And Brian, you were getting, what, 10, 12 years out of these roads before you had to?
Oh, yeah,
rebuild them?
easily. Like I say, a little bit of maintenance, a pavement preservation process somewhere in the 7 to 10 year range is going to give you, 15 to, I've seen some that are in the 20 to 25 range with a couple seal coats done with tar and chips. But once again, that's in Pennsylvania, and we have the freeze thaw cycle kind of dictates how we're able to do things in this area. I don't think you folks would have near that much issue down there with having the weather you do.
We don't have the snow, but we have the heat.
Right, right. Well, what we have found with those in the heat in the summertime in this area, if it did get a crack or something in it through the winter, that when the summertime heat gets onto it and the traffic's on it, it kind of needs itself back together. I don't want to say heals itself, but it gives it a much better strength with the fibers in it to hold it from having to do any maintenance, patching, et cetera, like that.
And that's basically what we've got to show you as far as, obviously, the next step would be working with the engineers, setting up a project, but do you guys have any questions for us?
I do. Imagine that. I understand the hot mix, the paving. You pour it into the pug mill or whatever you want to call it. It mixes it up, and that's okay. How do you do it in just cold mix milling?
Do you want to tell you, Brian, or they actually, go ahead, Brian.
So you would start with your millings pile, and in essence, a lot of times people, depending on what kind of budget they have, they may crush that down to 1.25 inches minus to down to 3/4 minus, make it a uniform material, go right out of a crusher screener into the pug mill hopper, and then right through, and it mixes your emulsion, a CSS 1H emulsion at a specific rate, puts it out into a mix chamber, mixes it out, puts it right into a truck bed. The truck takes it out to the paver and just paves it normally. No heat involved anywhere. The hottest heat you would have would be the temperature of your emulsion.
So, wait a minute. Go back through how I'm going to get from the milling pile to the road. Well, I'm slow.
Okay, that's fine. So historically, we've used anything from a loader to a bobcat to an excavator. What we found to be the most cost effective was to use an excavator, have it dig right out of the pile, either go directly into the pug mill or into a screener / crusher machine. And it would intend to do the same thing, load the hopper of the pug mill. The draw belt of the pug mill would then take it up into a chamber that you're introducing the emulsion / water and giving it its mixing time up in that mix chamber. So it would
That's
go
what
into
the
that.
fiber mixed in is there.
So you're saying that we add a liquid to the milling in
Correct.
order to get the fiber into it?
Yes.
What liquid would we use?
What we had historically used was a CSS 1H emulsion, which is kind of common to everybody in that industry.
Okay.
With regular millings, putting them down, I always say it's a 50-50 shot whether you get it down right. And once you get ripples in it and potholes, you got a problem.
Correct.
A problem you can't get rid of. Is this going to happen with this material?
It's not. And you had that problem. He went through the 20 years of what you're talking about, of the trials and tribulations of figuring out what did work. Everybody tries to go, all right, we're doing this on the cheap. That's why you're using the millings. You already bought and paid them. And it's like the least expensive. To do it correctly, you're going to have to add some emulsion back in there, because basically your piles are 5.2, and we want to get it back up to 7. And so that's the combination of getting the right liquid content back in. But now you're adding the fiber in there, doing what our fibers do, help hold it together. So those two combinations is how they got roads. Some of these roads in Pennsylvania are 20 years old. So, but that is, you're right,
Using the
because a
milling.
lot of people will just do for the moisture, they'll add water and just roll it out. You know, if you get enough heat, it's gonna hold kind of, but you got to get it back from that 5 up to 7 was what we found out.
Well, if you put it down and you wet it and roll it and do it right, chances are you'll be all right. But if you halfway do it, you wasting your time.
Yeah, we're working with Brevard County right now, and they're working on a 4-inch thick form mix design, 4 inches thick, 20-foot wide. And they're basing, so they're needing about 2,700 tons per mile. And they're figuring it to be about 100 and over there with what they're bidding about 110 to 120,000 a mile. Laid down, finished, whole deal. On a 20-foot, 4-inch thick.
Anyone in the audience have any questions? I know we got our supervisors here, plus we got David Melvin, Travis Howell. Hang on a second. Jabbo, come up and state your name for the record.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Jeffrey Register, District 2 Supervisor. So basically, what I'm looking at, we got on-site plan, right? Right. And then when you put this emulsion to it on cold mix you're talking about, that'll put it on the road at about 150 degrees.
I think it's about 100,
Okay,
110.
right. So it's not real.
It's not
like whatever temperature is outside, because that emulsion does have heat to it. So once you mix it up, it's gonna be a little hotter. But,
Okay.
so y'all find that cold mix is easier to lay than?
What's been your experience, Brian? You've got a lot more experience as far as, is it as easy to lay as the hot mix?
Yeah, without a doubt, because you don't have any heat in the screed. So all you're doing is basically laying that as whatever it's coming out of the truck as. So it lays that real well. With the emulsion, you're going to get a chocolate brown material coming through the paver, clear the end of the screed. And then as you look behind you, that'll start to break. And some of those chemicals and moisture come out of that emulsion mix, and it gets to be a jet black in a matter of, maybe an hour.
So do you pay the hot mix and the cold mix with a cold screed,
Uh-huh.
and it don't stick to the screed?
No, no, as long as your screed starts out and it's clean, you'll be pretty well off for the whole day.
Okay, all right.
At the end of the day, you may have a little bit of buildup where your head of your material comes up on your screed plate, but a quick heat of the screed and it scrapes right off at the end of the day, and then you're back to cold again.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Come on up, state your name, please.
I'm sure someone will do it.
Rod Adams with Melvin Engineering. On the hot mix, the concept acts like it, it seems like it makes sense. My question is, if it's such a good product, why is not the DOT using it, as a standard procedure in Florida anyway?
Great question. And that it was one of those, that's why they brought me on, is small company, they've been based on the concrete industry. That's 95% of our business. We're worldwide, and same concept, but because of the wars that came up, like I said earlier, in the 80s and 90s, they never really got started in this till the late 2009, 2010. So they're just expanding it out now. As far as I met with Courtney Drummond, who's Assistant Secretary, DOT, when I met him that year and a half ago. So he immediately put us on to 2 projects. We just finished the one about 4 months ago over on SR 200 north of Jacksonville. The next one's coming down on Highway 15 down Lake Okeechobee. I just talked with Howie Mosley last week, and they're actually just put us in to the first time for a FC5 mix. And see that the FC5, with that porous, that friction for your water base, they have that problem of it rattling. And that's where the fiber gets in there, because you're going to have the cellulose fiber in there as well. And so we've had some test results that are well over 100% improvement. Anyway, they're going to do the first project with that in about 6 months. And he told me the highway, it's over between Gainesville and Jacksonville. So it's the government. They don't move fast. It's getting there. And they, like I said, they just saw what they do go up to highway was up at the NCAT. And so he saw that we just finished our 3rd cycle. It's got 30 million easels on it and still no cracking. Takes time, politics. I've learned a lot about politics.
We don't know anything about that.
Jim.
So what's it going to cost per mile? I know it's what we have to spend on the milling.
Yeah, on the hot mix, you're looking at about a 10% increase. Brevard County, Cocoa Beach, Cocoa, they're basically doing over 50% of their asphalt now, and they base it on a 15-year cycle was what their road schedule is on. They're now on over a 20+ year, so they're on a 33% plus increase. So for a 10% increase, you're getting over a 30%. So your ROI, investment wise, it's a pretty simple choice. A lot less maintenance. You're getting a lot longer life out of the roads for a 10% increase. But on the hot mix, like I said, basically the cold mix, we haven't done one yet in Florida. So this is just being introduced. So somebody's going to be the first one. They've priced it out. Basically, it's between 110 and 120,000 with the millings being already part of the deal, not buying any.
Okay.
Well, millings is a hot commodity now. You can't get
Absolutely.
it.
And this will not be a big deal with the producers as far as hearing stuff like this, because like I said, it works and they need it. And they're going to want you out there doing your country roads. But again, Kevin said you guys need, because he understands the counties are on their own on this pretty much, 95% of it. So he said, go help what you can. And, it helps you get your county roads, your major ones where you guys want to expand to, where you want, start doing those. He goes, there's thousands of miles. Obviously you can't do them all in a couple of years, but pick out where it will benefit each county. Where do you want your growth to go?
We have 900 miles of
Exactly.
dirt roads.
I know. Yeah, there's thousands of miles. So he said and they're on their own because that's not a DOT.
So you would expect that, we don't have a pug mill.
Correct.
So we're going to
What I've got in here.
Contractor to come in or get one of the contractors to supply,
Right.
Or do you do that?
No, we've got this written up for you to give you a guideline on, because like I said, Brevard County is the lead. They've been doing it for 2.5 years. They've had tremendous success. So I've actually got in here what they've put together, that what you would put out for bid. We've got the specification sheet in here. So, and then, I'll send you the electronic part so you can change it to your specific needs.
Okay.
But we'll work with you with our engineers as far as going, all right, whatever questions you have, they will help you as far as fine tune it for your specific 900 miles.
Are you willing to give me a discount if I do the first coal mile in Jackson County?
Yes.
I'm ready to talk.
Yes, absolutely.
District two.
Send anything.
Just FYI, it will be in the Asphalt Pro magazine because Florida.
Send all your electronic stuff to Ms. Daniels and she will make sure we all get it.
Sounds great.
Any more questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Go, you're
Hey,
late.
there. No, I've been on the whole time. Joey's been over there I've been burning Joey's phone up trying to get this thing to unmute. Finally got it. Just a couple of quick questions for him. Does this come with some type of warranty through whatever contractor that does it?
Whatever the contractor, because the contractor is basically buying a product from us. And so it's whoever wins the contract, whatever you work with them, they, it's like they buy any other product and they're adding it in. So
Right.
Whoever wins the contract is the one that gets
Sure.
any of the.
Do you have other counties that have bought a type of warranty from them? Or through the contractor? Is that standard with them on your product to have a warranty attached to the road?
That I do not know.
Say it again, Eric.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now?
I can hear you.
Okay, I just wondering if existing counties that have roads put down, are the contractors offering those counties warranties? Are you familiar with any that are or not?
Brian, have you ever heard anybody doing that?
No, I haven't. Not in our area anyhow. It just went with the,
Yeah, I
the
get-
processes.
Okay, I guess maybe just two more quick questions. How much base work? So on some of my roads, I have lime on them, mostly 3 to 5 inches thick. What's your standard base on that, or your compression ratio, what you had to have for your product to come on it, just like any other highway?
Yeah, it would be basically the same. All that I would suggest would be to just prime that with an emulsion-based dust layer of sort, so that that lime and all that base material doesn't draw all that asphalt down, because it's starving so much for that. It kind of stops it if you put a kind of a layer down, and then it doesn't let it penetrate down through that to get into your lime base. So it stays pretty stable from there on, in my experiences.
Very good. And I guess my last question for you is you mentioned a couple of locations when we were in Orlando that they were currently doing projects for you. I know one of them, Bay County, and I think somewhere over in the Western Panhandle. Is there locations that we can go see the finished product and also the before and after product here while it's in process?
Yes,
Just you just get it to us. I don't need it now, but I'd like to see the finished product and maybe even the process if they're still in the process of doing that.
yeah, I'm working with Mark over in Panama City. I talked with him yesterday, and they were supposed to do the final pass on the budget yesterday. So actually, I'm supposed to call them this afternoon, but C.W. Roberts got the contract. We'll touch bases with them to find out what the schedule is for them. They're going to do 2 miles. This will be the hot mix design, but it's a heavy log road, so it's perfect heavy duty, which is perfect for where
Sure.
we need to be. But yeah, there's a couple other roads in Destin. Destin's actually been the oldest city using it. They've been using our product since 2017. And included in here is actually one of the press releases that they put out, because the constituents, I just like to know what you're doing with their money. So they said, hey, here we're doing things. So I've got that included in here as well.
Good.
Hey, I guess, again, one follow-up. I've got some existing roads like many commissioner does. It's getting deteriorated over the years for various reasons. Can we use the existing road and mix that? Can you grind? I know they've done some in my district prior to me becoming the commissioner that they recycle the existing road base and asphalt inclusive and turn it into that. Is that something that we can use some of that milling for to do that? Is there a process for that?
There is, it's probably more or less an FDR process for that. And the only snag that we have with that right now is just getting the disbursement into an FDR project where we know that we can get it through the pug mill. The mixing process in an FDR is basically just straight up and down and grinding it to whatever depth you would like to have it, and inclusive of the wearing course you have on top. So we just don't have that dialed in right yet, but we're working pretty hard at getting that to go with it as well.
Is that all you have, Eric? Alex, you have any questions? Commissioner McKinney, you have any questions? Oh,
No, sir, not at this time.
okay, very good. Thank you. Anyone else? We appreciate your time, and please let us know when they're going to be doing that project in Bay County.
Sounds great.
We'll take a look at it, and like to look at some of those streets over in Destin
Perfect.
that have already been done.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, sir. We
You bet.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just leave the books. Oh, okay. You want one of those books?
here, I'll leave them both. That way
All
you
right.
get them to the right.
We won't give them to him. Okay. Ms. Willan,
If y'all wanted to take a break, there's no need for all of these people to be held up from our next presentation.
if you guys want to leave, feel free. I know y'all have work to do, right, Travis?
Does he have a,
This next,
You,
Roger, do you have a card?
Roger.
They're in here?
and just for the benefit of the commissioners online, this will just take about 10 minutes of a short presentation from Evergreen Solutions, and then that's all we'll have for today.
Okay. Okay.
And this is Miss Kelly Tucker.
Ms. Tucker, you want to come forward? Please state your name for the record.
Kelly
You may
Tucker.
need to
Yeah, I know.
pull that mic down.
I meant to wear my heels, but.
But that
Okay,
height wouldn't do any good anyway.
my name is Kelly Tucker and I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Evergreen Solutions. We're based in Tallahassee.
Yeah, and I'll just say real briefly while Joey's bringing that up, that this was the company I shared with you all during budget that was at the FAC conference. It was actually Jeff Ling who was there, but Kelly was able to come over today, and she's going to have a short presentation and then really just questions if y'all had any. Y'all gave authorization to go out to RFQ. There's a chance we won't have to go that route because there's an existing contract with another county if we were able to negotiate that to a reasonable price and that sort of thing. But I wanted y'all mostly just to hear what they offer and have a chance to ask questions.
Okay, well, thank you. We appreciate you giving us the opportunity to come. Evergreen Solutions is this just gonna automatically?
No, you'll just have to tell him when you're ready for him to move. the
Okay,
slide.
well, we're here, of course, just to talk briefly about a classification and compensation study for the county and what that would entail, and I'll very briefly cover that. So the next slide is really just a very little bit about Evergreen. We are a full service HR company. We primarily 90% of our work is with the public sector. We've conducted over 600 classification and compensation studies nationwide, but most of our work is here in Florida. We've probably done about 200 of these. Again, as you see, these are our primary business is local government. But we also work for colleges, universities, school districts, and then nonprofit organizations. The next slide is really, I just gave you some of our experience here in Florida. And as you can see in this area, Leon, Wakulla, Gadsden, Gulf, Franklin, Bay, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, Walton, and Escambia County, we've all done similar studies for them. So we're well familiar with the area. We'd love to work for you. The next slide, I'm just going to briefly touch on what a class and comp study is. It's really to look at internal and external equity. So internal equity is just making sure that people performing similar work are getting paid within the same pay grade, because it doesn't really matter what your job title is. It's really, are you doing similar work? And that is the classification piece. So we would want to meet with employees, have them complete what we call a job assessment tool. And that is where they tell us exactly what they do in their job, what their title is, what their education requirements are to do that job, if any, what certifications might be required to do their job. That way it gives us an idea where they need to be within your organization as far as pay goes. You know, the higher the responsibility, the higher the pay level. So we're just trying to make sure that there's internal equity within the county. And that would be the classification piece. So after we meet with employees and we have them complete that job assessment tool, then we have supervisors look over it to make sure it looks good. They provide any comments if they think maybe the employee didn't quite capture everything they needed to capture for their particular job. And then after we look at all of that, we determine where those jobs need to fall within the organization. And that's called hierarchy of jobs. And perhaps somebody's wrongly classified. And we would then recommend to the county that that position be reclassified and moved to another pay level. So it's really just making sure that you have a system that is fair and equitable internally. That's the classification piece. So the next piece would be the market salary survey, and that's looking at external equity. How does the county's positions compare to the surrounding area? Who you lose employees to? You know, maybe they're going to neighboring counties or cities because they're getting paid more. And if you're having a high turnover, those are things you want to look at. So we would come in, we would do a salary survey and look at your salaries as compared to others. And then we would report back to you that, you know, these counties are paying this for deputy sheriffs, they're paying this for your finance director, your HR director, et cetera, et cetera. And then we would work with you to look at all that and see where you want to be. And we would come up with options. Every local government's different. We know that. Everybody has unique circumstances. Of course, it has to fit within your budget too. It's not going to make sense if we come back and give you a bunch of recommendations that says, you know, it's going to cost $5 million to, you know, bring everybody up to where they need to be competitive in the market. We're going to work with you each step of the way and look at what is feasible for Jackson County. Where do you want to be in the market? Where do you want to be with regard to salaries? And maybe you look at a certain group of employees. Maybe you're losing a certain type of employee. Maybe you're having a hard time with deputies, for example. And so maybe you want to look at their salaries and move them up before you look at others. There's many options that we work with you on to make it make sense to you. So that's what we do. We come up with several options for what you might want to do in order to implement our recommendations. Does that make sense? So, I mean, some, you know, for example, I would say at a minimum, our recommendations might be after we look at the internal equity and the external equity, you might have a number of employees that fall well below what we would call the minimum of that salary range. And they would just need to be moved up to the new minimum of the salary range that we would recommend. And we would cost that out for you. Does that make sense?
Clear as mud.
How about minimum wage? Are y'all getting reached out to help with the minimum wage?
Absolutely, and that would be part of the study as well. As you know, that you have till 2026 to implement the minimum wage requirement. So we would work with you to, you know, what does that look like? You would do it in increments this year, next year, and the fall, you know, up to 2026. And what would that cost to bring those hourly wages up to the minimum?
Do you look at positions or jobs to see if maybe there's a better way of doing what they're doing? Streamlining the process, maybe eliminating positions.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, that's a totally different type of study, but that doesn't mean that we can't, you know, discuss that with you. Initially, what we do is we come on site and we meet with your HR folks and or whoever else you want us to meet with, and we discuss what kind of issues are taking place in Jackson County. Are you having high turnover? Do you have compression? Compression is a situation that happens in many local governments where you've got people that have been here for a long time, and then all of a sudden now you hire someone new in that position and they're almost where the person is in terms of salary that has been here for many, many years. That causes compression in the salary range.
We're
That's an
familiar with
issue.
that.
Yes,
Last time we done a study, it happened. Right? Like, so before we got here, but they did a study and it,
Yeah, so
Okay.
basically
Well-
what went wrong with that study was that a lot of people got put at the base of the new ranges, but it was people who had been here and
Right.
new people. And so it created compression when I don't know that that had always been the problem. It was a new problem. that was
well, you
created.
don't want everybody to start. You have to look at who's already within the range, and their salaries need to be adjusted according to the ones that you're moving up to the new minimum. So that's what we do. We work with you on those recommendations because that wouldn't be fair to someone who's been here. So it's really how, longevity pay. We look at all of those things. So it's not just compression. We look at,
If we're hiring people based upon their skills, if I've got a guy that's been operating a motor grader for 10 years,
right,
he's not coming here as a motor grader at the
That's
bottom of
right.
the pay scale. So I gotta bring him in
I
to get
understand,
him, whether he's a motor grader operator or
right?
whatever. So
Right.
you're not gonna get people with experience coming, which we would want. And I think that's part of the problem we're seeing now.
Absolutely.
And I think that's causing some compression and some squawking.
Well, no doubt about it. And you bring up a good point. You're not going to bring in good people unless you either hire them at a different position. They're not going to start at the base if they've got all that experience. So you're
Right.
either going to, you're going to have to offer them more. But what you've got to do is you've got to look at you got to look at your whole entire pay plan. And are employees given an opportunity to progress within their range? You don't want somebody staying stagnant, that's been here forever and ever, at the bottom of the range. So,
Well, are you thinking that these people would talk to the sheriff, talk to Clay?
Well, I made a
Dr.
note here
Rebecca.
that that would be something we would need to discuss if this is going to include constitutionals, if constitutionals are interested in them being included.
Some of the stuff that she thought, I said it was 2 weeks ago.
well, we're working right now with Wakulla County, and it included their constitutional officers, and we're working with Franklin County. So some do include constitutional officers, some don't. But regardless of the case, what we do is we meet individually with department heads. We want to hear from them. What kind of issues are you facing within your own department in terms of turnover or hard to recruit for positions? All those things are taken into account when we do the study. So it's not just, we don't come in and it's a one solution fits all situation, because everybody's got a different set of circumstances. Everybody's working within budgets. And,
Well, we don't control their salaries.
right.
So
Well, no, absolutely.
I don't know that including them would be worth our time.
we don't, but we do.
No, we signed the bottom line,
No,
they're gonna get what they
You
request.
don't control.
No,
When that constitutional gets his budget or her budget,
That's it.
but what I'm saying is that if you wanted to give a big increase and they wouldn't have money there, we
Well,
do
you can,
control
yeah.
that. So we do control it. We don't,
and that.
Micro-
We don't dictate it.
yeah, we don't
Right.
dictate.
We gotta look at it as minimum wage.
Right.
You have minimum wage at 15.
That creates a big,
I did
Budget
start out at
issue.
30 grand. It's gonna bring 5 years from now, the level admin assistant or whatever in at 32, well. it'll be
Right.
written. And you guys have the same problem on every constitution.
Mhm.
So, my opinion, you gotta start planning ahead of that.
Something happened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
thought,
last 5 years from now, you're gonna give your.
That's just what you could do.
right, the
Right.
thought process was, we're about to make, in the end, it's going to be likely a multi-million-dollar investment, not only for minimum wage, but also to prevent this compression issue. But what does that look like? What
Mhm.
can we afford? What's reasonable,
Right.
And so I just feel like we need someone that really knows what they're doing to help us, whether that's Evergreen or someone
Mhm.
else. to help us walk through that from a professional that does this.
Well, we certainly have the experience. We have references. Like I say, we've worked in the area. You know, we'll work with you to give you the best price we can too, because we realize, you know, you're our neighbor, you're not far.
And we're poor.
Huh?
We're poor.
No. Yeah, I mean, look, Franklin County, they're all being faced with similar issues, Gulf County. So we've worked with a lot of sheriff's offices, many. So in this area, Bay, Walton, you know, so, I mean, you know, we'll work with you, you know, understand if you have to go out to RFP, you have to go out to RFP. That's, you know,
Well,
we'll submit a bid.
Well,
and-
what we could do is get with y'all on it, you know, if you want to put it in writing or not, we'll get kind of an estimate on what it would look like to include the constitutionals and.
I can do that by tomorrow. I can give you a price, you know, for that. And we just entered into a contract with Marion County, and it includes everybody. And that's the contract that you could piggyback off of if you wanted to. We just got approval yesterday, so I just got the full contract. But we have 4 teams that work on these projects. It's not like we have one team and we're stretched thin and we're not going to give you the time that you need should you hire us. So
How long will it take you to do a study?
how many employees do you have again? Like,
Well, just for the board, it's around 280.
right.
And then with the constitutionals, everybody 400-ish, maybe a little
Right.
more than 400.
You know, to do a really good study, it takes 3 to 4 months, honestly, because you don't want to just come in, you know, boop, boop, and then leave. You really want to spend time getting to understand what your issues are, meeting with employees. That process alone, meeting with employees and then having them complete that job assessment tool takes almost a month. Because employees have 2 weeks to complete it. Then the supervisor has a week after that to review it. The process just for the classification piece takes at least a month. Then when you go out to market, we're asking your other local governments to respond to our salary survey. So we want to give them plenty of time, because the more data we get, the better it is for you. So that process takes at least a
Don't
month.
compare us to Bay County and what was the other county you said?
West
Spalding County.
Canyon.
We do not have beaches. So their
I know,
salaries-
we understand.
Their salaries is always gonna be higher than us. Ain't nothing we can do about that.
Well, we
Unless you
adjust
find us-
everything for cost of living. So it doesn't, we could compare you to Key West and still come out with, believe it or not, there are computer models that allow us to adjust for cost of living. We have all that built into our formulas. So that's not a problem, because we have that situation everywhere we go. We work in resort towns, and resort towns, you know, they get, you know, they have to be competitive. They have to pay their employees a lot more than somebody that's, you know, right next door that's inland. So you don't want to compare them. That's comparing apples to oranges. So we really look at the cost of living and we factor all that in.
Okay.
So
Okay,
thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
Appreciate you
And I'll
coming
be in
over.
touch. Okay, thank you.
Well, Ann, when's our next meeting?
Tuesday at 9 o'clock.
Tuesday, 9 a.m.
I mean, I'm sorry, 6 o'clock. Sorry. It's a night meeting.
All right, Tuesday, 6
Just
p.m.
kidding, not 6 o'clock.
All right, anything else we need?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
yeah, I had Rhett send me a thing on Vancouver and let's see, what's this road? Vancouver and Russell Road that Baxter's Asphalt is doing. It's going to be an add-on. I'd like to make a motion we accept, subject to
Glad
legal
we not,
review.
hey,
Yes,
we're not taking any official action today.
y'all didn't
Because-
schedule this for it.
We
Okay.
did, but guess what? There's only 2 of
What?
us.
You have to
Okay.
be in person now.
Okay. All righty.
All right,
All right. Thank y'all.
we'll have to wait, okay?
All right.
All right, anything else?